ibiyobyabwenge birica kandi birangiza. Rinda ubuzima bwawe n'ubwa mugenzi wawe, tugira igihugu kizira ibiyobyabwenge. Rubyiruko, nimwe musingi ukomeye w'igihugu. Radio Imanzi, 105.1 FM. Buri wese abigize ibye, twatsinda burundu akarengane na ruswa. U Rwanda ruzira ruswa n'akarengane mu cyerekezo 2050. Radio Imanzi, 105.1 FM.
We got you updated. This is Radio Imanzi, news in English.
Good evening, dear listener. Thank you for tuning in. This is Radio Imanzi, 105.1 FM, broadcasting from Kigali. Here are the news in English, brought to you by Kagorora Umwari Alvin. The headlines. Rwanda's exports to Turkey have increased to over $10 million on an annual basis. Foreign Affairs Minister Imanzi and Burundian President Evariste Ndayishimiye are in Luanda for the mini-summit on the security crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Kenyan President Ruto and Ugandan President Museveni made a trip to Asia for trade deals. West African nations met with European leaders for talks on homegrown's way to prevent jihadist conflict. We'll be back with news in detail. Welcome back. Let's detail the headlines. Robert Bafakurira, the Rwandan Private Sector Federation PSF chairperson, revealed this during the Rwanda-Turkey Economic and Business Forum, which kicked off on Monday 21st in Istanbul, where a number of Rwanda business operators are attending. The forum, which runs to November 24th, are organized in partnership with the Foreign Relations Board of Turkey's private sector, known as DEIK. On the sideline of the forum, the chairperson of Turkey-Rwanda Business Council, Selim Bora, who is also chairperson of Suma Construction, one of the biggest international companies with projects in Rwanda, had a discussion with Bafakurira. He said trade and investment reflect the growth and maturity of the two economies, and the two countries have already signed more than 15 cooperative agreements in different fields. On imports more than ever, he noted that Rwanda's import volume has increased tremendously, up to $79 million in 2021. Today, he said the trend has reached $173 million in the first quarter of 2022. Bafakurira told Turkish business operators that this is the most favorable time for doing business in Rwanda. He continued saying, "We're here to look for trade and investment opportunities, and we're ready to provide any support you might need to invest in Rwanda." Turkish company Hakan invested in the peat power plant in Rwanda for electricity generation. The bilateral ties between Rwanda and Turkey have over the past few years gained momentum, both in terms of bilateral trade between both countries and politically. Foreign Affairs Minister Imanzi on Wednesday, November 23rd, attended the mini-summit on the security crisis in Eastern DR Congo. The mini-summit, taking place in Luanda, Angola, was attended by President Yohan Lourenço, the host, and Felix Tshisekedi of DR Congo, Evariste Ndayishimiye of Burundi, and former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the facilitator of the East African Community-led peace process. According According to President Ndayishimiye's office, the summit is taking place behind closed doors, and the second Luanda summit on DR Congo security was convened 5 months after the first one designed a roadmap for the pacification of eastern Congolese provinces of North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri. Eastern DR Congo is home for over 120 armed groups who are accused of various abuses, according to the United Nations. The Congolese armed forces are fighting against the M23 rebel group in North Kivu. President Laurencio, who chairs the International Conference on the Great Lakes region, serves as the mediator between Rwanda and DR Congo, whose relations has soured following claims by Kinshasa that Kigali supports the M23 allegations Kigali denies. The Luanda roadmap under the International Conference of the Great Lakes region, one of the two regional mechanisms established to bring peace to Eastern DR Congo. The other is East African Community-led Nairobi process, in which the Congolese government holds peace talks with the many armed groups. Attempts to resume the Nairobi talks failed earlier this week, with the Kinshasa government demanding the M23 to withdraw from occupied territories, a concession the rebels have dismissed. The East African Community resolved to deploy troops to the restive region. Kenya has already deployed 900 troops. Burundian and Ugandan contingents are set to arrive soon. Rwanda has placed her first bond under its medium-term notes in the samurai market of Japan as the country seeks to raise funds from the latter. The samurai market is the largest state capital market in Japan and also considered as the most demanding in terms of requirements and compliance issues. The development was announced Wednesday, November 23rd, after the Prime Minister Edouard Ngirente hosted outgoing Ambassador of Japan to Rwanda, Masahiro Imai. The meeting, also attended by various government officials, attracted discussions around achievements from long bilateral relations and ongoing areas of cooperation between Rwanda and Japan. Minister of State in charge of East African Community, Manasseh Nshuti, confirmed the bond issuance, citing that negotiations are ongoing and talks could be complete by next year. He said the funds will be invested in key sectors identifying by the government. This is not the first time Rwanda is raising money from the international debt market, but Nshuti argues that this is the most attractive regarding to the very low interest rate. In August last year, Rwanda raised $620 million in its second ever Eurobond with an interest rate of 5.5% and a 10-year maturity. Nshuti asserted the yen bond remains with an ultra-low interest rate, and the country's assumed interest rate currently stands at 1.3% for debt servicing, but can go even lower than that in some cases. The M23 rebel group fighting government forces in eastern DR Congo says there are plans for genocidal violence against Congolese Tutsi communities. There have been reports of violence, including cases of cannibalism targeted at Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese communities in eastern DR Congo. According to the United Nations, ever since May this year, renewed fighting in eastern DR Congo between government forces, FARDC and M23 rebels has led the displacement of over 200,000 people. The rebels accuse the Kinshasa government of downplaying peaceful efforts to stop fighting. In a statement on Tuesday, the M23 said the coalition of the FARDC and armed groups like the FDLR and the Mai Mai were responsible for the establishment of a new chaotic order and imminent genocide. The claims by the M23 that the Congolese government has a genocidal plan could not be independently verified. A statement signed by Lawrence Kanyuka, the M23 political spokesperson, read, for instance, in Masisi, the coalition warned all the Congolese citizens of Tutsi ethnic and gather in medical centers and parishes. He continued saying the M23 movement reminds the international community that the DRC government and its allies are using similar methods to the ones of 1994 genocide against the Tutsi of Rwanda, perpetrated by the Interahamwe FDLR, who are the DRC government's ally. He added, in a way to implement, he said, genocidal plan, the DR Congo government has appointed to Brigadier General Mugabo Hassan to be in charge of operations in Masisi. One shall remember the horrendous crimes committed by Brigadier General Mugabo Hassan while he was in Pariko and his extreme collaboration with the FDLR. We'll be back with economic news.
Economic news is a regular feature on Radio Imanzi.
The trading session recorded a turnover of 3,020,214,400 worth of bonds traded in 10 deals on the fixed income market and 52,123,200 Rwandan francs from 305,200 shares traded in 3 deals on the equities market. Equities counter closed as follow: Bank of Kigali at 266 Rwandan francs, Bralirwa at 166 Rwandan francs, I&M Rwanda at 43 Rwandan francs, Simirwa at 120 Rwandan francs, MTN Rwanda at 175 Rwandan francs, Equity at 440 Rwandan francs, Kenya Commercial Bank at 370 Rwandan francs, National Media Group at 1,200 Rwandan francs, Uchumi Supermarket Limited at 104 Rwandan francs, and R&H Buffalo at 526 Rwandan francs. The exchange rate on the market today: the United States dollar was buying 1,045 Rwandan francs and was selling 1,066 Rwandan francs. The British pound was buying 1,241 Rwandan francs and was selling 1,266 Rwandan francs. The euro was buying 1,078 Rwandan francs and was selling 1,100 Rwandan francs. The Kenyan shilling was buying 8.5 Rwandan francs and was selling 8.7 Rwandan francs. The Tanzanian shilling was buying 0.44 Rwandan francs and was selling 0.45 Rwandan francs. The Ugandan shilling was buying 0.27 Rwandan francs and was selling 0.28 Rwandan francs. The Burundian francs was buying 0.50 Rwandan francs and was selling 0.51 Rwandan francs. We'll be back shortly with international news.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
Kenya's President William Ruto and his Ugandan counterpart Yoweri Museveni are pitching business and technology relations in their separate trips to East Asian countries. President Ruto touched down in Seoul, South Korea on Tuesday afternoon, indicating his trip will focus on boosting trade relations as well as investment opportunities in energy. The Ugandan leader, on his part, arrived in Hanoi, Vietnam on Wednesday afternoon, and both African leaders were separately invited by their respective hosts, South Korean new president and Vietnamese president. Kenya is keen on expanding economic ties with the East Asian nations and exploring areas of cooperation, especially in ICT, education, pharmaceuticals, and infrastructure. Ruto is scheduled to attend a business forum to market Kenya as a suitable investment destination for foreign investors. The visit is also expected to open up job opportunities for tech-savvy youth in both countries. West African nations met with European leaders for talks on homegrown ways to prevent jihadist conflict in the Sahel threatening to engulf countries in the Gulf of Guinea. Coastal states Ghana, Benin, Togo, and Ivory Coast face increasing threats and attacks from Islamic militants across their northern borders with Burkina Faso and Niger. The summit in Ghana's capital, Accra, also comes as more Western nations have withdrawn peacekeepers from Mali after its military junta strengthened cooperation with Russia. Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo said worsening Sahel security was threatening to engulf the entire West African region. Terrorist groups emboldened by the apparent success in the region are looking for new operational grounds, a development that has triggered a southward drift of the menace. Under the so-called Accra Initiative, heads of states from the Gulf of Guinea and leaders from Niger and Burkina Faso met in Ghana with representative from the West African bloc, ECOWAS, the AU, Britain and France. Akufo-Addo called for a homegrown initiative to answer the threat as well as a comprehensive approach involving economic and social development to tackle the roots of jihadism. At least 37 people were killed in a multi-bus crash in northeastern Nigeria on Tuesday. The authorities say the accident occurred near the city of Maiduguri, where two commercial buses collided head-on and burst into flames. A third bus then crashed into them. Uteni Boy, head of the Road Safety Agency from Borno State, said in a statement, 37 people have been confirmed dead, most of them burnt beyond recognition. A burst tire on the first bus, coupled with excessive speed, according to the official, was the cause of the tragedy. Road accidents are common in Nigeria, where road conditions have deteriorated in recent weeks following heavy rains and flooding. The worst in a decade in the country. Earlier Tuesday, 17 people were killed and 4 injured when their bus crashed into a truck near Abuja, Nigeria's capital. Sudanese health officials said at least 26 people have died from dengue fever in one of the most outbreaks the country has seen in recent years. Dengue fever is a mosquito-borne disease that occurs in tropical areas of the world, usually spreading near stagnant sources of water. As of Monday, November 21st, 460 cases of the disease and a further 3,436 suspect cases have been recorded. The Sudanese Health Ministry announced on social media around 20 of the deaths were recorded in southern Kordofan region, one of the areas where the outbreak was first reported by the Sudanese Doctors Committee in earlier November. Several local media outlets put the official numbers of cases as much higher. Dengue fever has flu-like symptoms and can often lead to organ failure and death. In 2019, an outbreak in Sudan was responsible for 5 deaths according to the World Health Organization. At the height of Sudan's rainy season in August and September, flooding killed at least 144 people and destroyed tens of thousands of homes, along with roads and other vital infrastructure. And that brings us to the end of the news program today. Let us look at the headlines once more. Rwanda's export to Turkey have increased to over $10 million on an annual basis. Foreign Affairs Minister Vincent Biruta and Burundi President Evariste Ndayishimiye are in Luanda for mini summit on the security crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Kenyan President Ruto and Ugandan President Museveni made the trip to Asia for trade deals. West African nations met with European leaders for talks on homegrown ways to prevent jihadist conflict. Thank you for staying with me. This was Alvin Omngari on Radio Imanzi. Stay at the frequency for more programs. Stay safe, stay warm, and have a wonderful night.